I listened to the Hobbit.
You are almost 100% bought into the conservative framing on this.
I think most of what conservatives were mad when it came to cancel culture actually was about COVID stuff, because that's when like the huge crackdown on YouTube and Facebook started with like vaccine and COVID misinformation. That was like the mass banning that everybody got super ass banned about. You guys were looking for names earlier of like right wingers that were like super banned. Do you know people like, do you remember Stefan Molyneux?
Yeah, or like Arch Warhammer is somebody I'm thinking of. Like when I say super banned, that's the most extreme. But I do think that there is a pressure of like stifling speech that happened for people, even if they weren't outright banned, like demonetizing them, going to their workplace to try to get them like fired or any sort of things. Like just the broadband cancellation. I think it goes all the way up to banning, and I think it begins at like areas of like pressuring platforms to shadow ban or demonetize or any of these sorts of things.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Okay, so I pointed out the Disney thing earlier, the Bud Light thing earlier, and then like liberals, and then there are like liberals that like cancel people, right? But like earlier, I think we all agreed that like these weren't generally led or cheer-led by, Democrat leadership or like huge like parts of the Democratic establishment. Usually it was kind of like cultural stuff.
It's
like
not politicians. It's exclusively culture of the left, right? Like this is what I've said as well, is we have this issue where our Democratic politicians are actually not at all that much like the like culture, particularly the culture that we created between 2016 and 2020, because our culture was a lot more crazy. It was like getting into like the neo-gender stuff. Now that was particularly terminally online, but there was a massive push in like a certain direction that actually our politicians weren't there, which I agree with.
Mm-hmm. And something I used to make fun of the right wing for a lot on this was that, like, in a way, I feel like this is kind of like capitalism. It's like if people want to, have a cultural movement and they want to not support something, they kind of have the right to do that. Now, I know you're not really talking about do we have the right to do it. You're saying like, should we do it? But I would say that like this is like a form of like free speech, like I don't want to support this platform because they're doing this. And then, we can argue over, well, what are those things that we should or shouldn't support? But the reason why I bring that up is because I think there's a huge distinction between that, because when you compare that to what happens on the right, like the Bud Light stuff or like the go woke, go broke Disney stuff, I don't think people on the left really cared that much about that. Like if people want to boycott companies, fine. It was the fact that like the president of the United States is like cheerleading or is behind a lot of these movements. And I think that's like a different type of thing. Like we use words like cancel and censor like kind of interchangeably.
Yes.
Like on the left, and then for the Bud Light stuff or whatever, that was like quote unquote cancel culture. But like when it's led by the president, that's like censorship. I think it's like a meaningfully different thing. Yeah.
I agree. I'm just going to pause you. I'm just letting my Twitch viewers know I have to stop right now. I just thought about it. I'll probably get mute.
Okay. I really leave in like 1 minute. So
no, you're good. I'll just restart Twitch in like 3 seconds. So that it's not double my face. I definitely agree, right? And so like if the argument is, I did it again. That's how I solve this. If the argument is Republicans are so much worse, yeah, I think the censorship, like pressuring the FCC, is more extreme than anything that we saw Biden, which is one of my frustrations with Maloney or whatever that Ryan guy's last name is, right? Which is that just is objectively worse. The problem that I have is when on the left, it feels like when I listen to a lot of people, we just rewrite what happened after Gamergate, not just on the internet, although the internet has trickled into life very heavily, where COVID was banned and there was a lot of that, but COVID was banning, to be honest, like remember when Dylan Burns got nuked over COVID because he just like talked about it? Like COVID was starting.
I had multiple strikes on COVID.
I'm sure you did. Yeah. So it seemed more bipartisan. So when like Republicans bring that up, I'm like, I know multiple left-leaning people that were pro-COVID vaccine that were getting strikes.
Yeah, I understand that. But so like it wasn't bipartisan. It was definitely like it was towards a certain direction. Like when I got hit, it was an accident because I was talking about the vaccines and I was able to appeal it. But if I was doing actual like anti-vaxxer stuff, I probably wouldn't have been able to appeal it.
Sure, which was more right-wing.
One of the challenges for some stuff is like, let's say that you have, like 2 kids in a classroom and one genuinely misbehaves more than the other, well, what are you going to do? One is probably going to get in trouble with me. Does that mean you hate them? I don't know. I mean, for conservatives, do you send the police equally to all parts of the city or do you send it more to the parts with more crime? Well, if you send it to the parts with more crime, don't conservatives always say, now liberals are going to call us racist and prejudiced? Well, maybe Black people are these poor parts just commit more crime. Sure. When it comes to censoring like misinformation or hateful speech, I mean, like conservatives kind of do it more, and it's hard to get around that, I think, sometimes, especially when it like if you go online and now, especially like 2020 onwards, you're seeing like flat earth stuff, misinformation about moon landing, COVID, vaccines. Like if you hit somebody on these things, like 95% of them are going to be conservatives. Like, what do you do about that?
Sure. So the issue is that my argument isn't about the justifiability of it, right? I think that there is a conversation to have there. And I actually don't know where I fall perfectly, because I think it's really complicated. Like, who is justified to basically have their speech suppressed because they are harming the town square, essentially, and who isn't? I don't know actually where I fall in the justifiability. The issue that I am pointing out is that there was a change where certain speech was fine, like pre-2016, and then it wasn't. And I would I need to go look for more like conservative examples. But even before the COVID stuff, it seemed like there was a large amount of conservative channels getting nuked for conservative positions. Now, some of the conservative positions they got nuked for were really bad. And some of the conservative positions were like edgy jokes that, to be frank, a lot of left-leaning content creators weren't getting nuked for nearly as much. They weren't getting completely nuked off of platforms or having people going to their Patreon to try to destroy them.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But if we think about the big nukes, what was happening? You had the Sargon of Akkad joke, which you brought up, or Hobbit brought up, and then you kind of corrected him. It was a joke. I don't think he was sincerely going to rape that woman or whatever.
Yeah, of course not. It was a super edgy joke that I don't like. But that got him demonetized.
But he was also yeah, but I think he said this while he was wasn't he trying to run for a UKIP seat in 2020 when he was doing this? I think he was running for government when he made this comment, I think.
No, he got nuked. Wild... He got demonetized in 2019 is what me and Hobbit, I believe. I think it was Hobbit that said it, or somebody in chat said that.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah.
I think it was 2019. So he did start running later. And I do think he's radicalized over time. But when I listen to Sargon of Akkad in your debate with him in 2016 to 18, right? I don't see this extreme radical right-winger. But he was already... I don't really think
he was an extreme radical right-winger in 2016, 2018. But he also wasn't demonetized then either, right?
He was getting a large amount of pressure, though, because people like Arch Warhammer will talk about this, right? Because Arch Warhammer was somebody that went through no demonetization, but a complete abject cancelization of his channel, right? He just never really recovered.
Wait, how could he get
channel.
Canceled? What do you mean by not?
I mean culturally canceled, right? So everyone turned on him, said that he was a horrible person, and misconstrued him, in ways that genuinely were not fair.
So I understand. And I understand sometimes it's going to talk about the general principle of a thing, but I think it's really important, before we talk about how we've ceded the moral high ground or how we have no right to talk about a thing, to get the factual stuff straight too. If you walk in and you see some 40-year-old dude just punch this 60-year-old guy right in the face, and he's on the ground, and you're like, whoa, that was wrong. And they're like, well, hold on, ask him first, why do you do it? It's okay, why'd you punch that guy? And the guy's like, well, he hit me first. It's well, okay, sure, maybe that's fair then. But then you find out, when I said he hit me first, that's actually my dad, and he spanked me when I was a kid. It's well, hold on. That's not really the same thing, right? I feel it's important to get into the minutia, not super minutia, but why are people getting canceled? What does it mean when we say canceled? And is it really the same thing as, the FCC? I know you're not saying it's the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
I think there are meaningful differences here, and it's good to explore. Sometimes it's okay for a person to get banned. Yeah.
I think that if we had these meaningful conversations, because to be frank, of all the people that I've talked to, you're the only one that's agreed that it seems the right wing was in large part getting disproportionately nuked. Some of it maybe was justified and some of it maybe wasn't, because for sure, edgy culture got kind of consumed by the right because the left just made it the right wing thing because you're not allowed to be edgy, which is why we got PC culture that emerged on the left, which is what you got penalized over multiple times, right? People would even say that you're transgender comment, they're you're just a right winger, right? And a lot of people genuinely believed that at the time, that saying maybe trans people shouldn't be in sports is fundamentally transphobic, and it is only a right wing position, which is what you got nuked over, right? And
yeah, sure. And I mean, there are adjustments in moving in directions where there are people that get caught, especially edgy people, especially me, is going to get caught in the crossfire or whatever the fuck. But I'm a 1%er, right? The majority of people aren't getting hit in the same way that I am, because the majority of people aren't insanely fucking edgy in the ways that I am. I think that overwhelmingly, the movement and cultural direction was overwhelmingly good, right?
I think the left definitely went too far with it. I think it became bad because I think it turned off moderates.
Went too far. But overwhelmingly, it was a good direction. Even if we have to correct a little bit, it's way better now. As painful as it is to say as a white guy who's graduated it, it's way better now than it was 15 years ago. There's way more inclusion. It's not okay to be outwardly insanely sexist, homophobic. Transphobia, I guess, is making a big comeback right now. But for the most part, the internet's a lot more of an inclusive place. You see more people in different spaces. I think it's a good thing, right? Broadly speaking.
I think it has been more morally good by and large. The issue is that it also it affected so many moderate people that they now vehemently hate the left, that I think that there has been some major serious consequences, which is why I don't know if I could grant that it was like mostly good. It was morally good. I think it was pretty tactically stupid. It's like the Rachel Notley comparison of like thrusting so many like kind of NDP socialist things into the Albertan zeitgeist before we were ready, that it just basically like now socialists in Alberta are going to be just non-competitive for the next few while, because it left such a bad taste in the mouth of the particularly the politically uninformed people who were getting in trouble for saying retard at work, because that was happening.
Sure. So,
and it was happening in a very daily way.
I agree that overall the perception maybe has been bad, but I think that perception is highly like fictitious. I don't think it's as bad. Like, I'm sure you've had conversations with guys, and like, so I'm sure there are people that get in trouble for saying stuff that maybe they could have said 5 or 10 years ago at work. There are huge examples of this.
Yes.
One of the funniest, I say funniest, one of the worst was two guys made like this blew up so much in like 10 years ago. Two guys made like a dongle joke, I think, at some huge tech conference, and the woman behind them took a picture of them and tweeted it out, and all three of them got fired. It was a huge shit show. And there was a lot of stuff. This is when Jordan Peterson was coming up and all this. There's a lot of stuff about that like wasn't great. But like the average person, like to some extent, wasn't having these huge issues in their personal life. I think the average person was benefiting a lot in their personal life. Mm-hmm. But like if you talk to some average guys, they'll say things like, oh, like I'm really worried about being accused of like being a rapist or being like accused of being a pedophile if I go to a park or something. Like this isn't, I don't think this is really happening in real life. It's like in any like past 0.0001%. I think this is like an exceptionally rare thing. But when everybody starts to feel this way, then I feel like we're having to try to like course correct against like a perception.
I feel like I know like
yeah.
I think I know like 8 or 9 different guys that got like brutally penalized in university, for example, for just like giving like normal conservative, not hateful, not great replacement, not racist, just like pretty normal conservative arguments and takes in university, and had like their grades dropped. They like went through multiple processes to try to like get it reevaluated. Like I knew multiple men that, like, for example, went through this experience, and there was probably some women.
Wait, they gave an ordinary conservative take, and they had their grades dropped?
Yeah. They went from like they wrote a paper in a class where they were normally getting like A's and B's that was more opinion based, and when they voiced a more conservative opinion, they resulted in like getting like D minuses.
That's interesting. I can't speak to it, obviously.
Yeah, which is, I guess, it just did happen. And there is some research on this that like right wing perspectives just like were, but this was happening, right? And to reframe this,
and I'm sure it was happening, but also like there were also like professors that fuck female students with impunity, or there were like beforehand, right? Like, there was a lot of bad stuff that were correcting.
Sure, but the issue is like this argument that you're like kind of jumping into hasn't been me saying that there weren't wins from all this. I'm saying it also was really bad. We just did do way more cancel culture, particularly towards the right. They did experience it more than us. Some of it is maybe justified. Some of it maybe is not. I don't care about that thing, but they did experience that. And to be honest, the debates that I've been having with people has been, I'm retarded. What are you saying? I'm a MAGA apologist for even suggesting that the right disproportionately experienced this. When it's like, this is obviously true. The issue that we have is, was it justified or not? It's not about whether or not like there was major moral gains socially as a result of like the PCification of things. There was a large amount of moral gains. I think the Me Too movement was by and large a very good movement that got a little bit corrupted at the very end. But I think it was mostly good.
I think when sometimes people are on like what they view as a moral mission, they are quick to kind of like cast aside any like faults or bad things that they came as a result of that, which I think is fair to call them out for. But I do think it's important to understand like when people are on like a more moral mission. In the United States, when you get arrested, there's something called habeas corpus. You have to be read charges within a certain time period. They have to let you go. They can't just hold you indefinitely. I don't know the exact details, but like Lincoln, I think, suspended habeas corpus for a brief period of time before the Civil War. And I think somebody asked him, the question was like, do you think you're going to have regrets about the suspension of habeas corpus? And I think Lincoln said something along the lines of like, if I have any regrets by the end of this war, it's that I didn't do this more, it's that I didn't arrest more people or something. And I think that when we look at like where we came from and then the trajectory of where we were going, like we want obviously less people getting raped, we want less sexism, we want less bigotry. Like, are people overzealous? For sure. You don't have to tell me that, obviously. Like there definitely are people that are overzealous, and people need to be like corrected for it and called out for it. But I think it's not fair to say that like, oh, well, we've lost the moral high ground because some people corrected for sexism too much. And now for the people that are like genuinely bigoted and sexist, we have to concede some kind of like moral position to them. I just think that like framing is In my mind, I feel like it's not the same.
I just think that this framing is like unfair, essentially, right? Like, were some people like nuked because they were like too sexist and these sort of things? Yeah. Were some people absolutely very drastically impacted because they were culminated into being the thing that wasn't happening? Yes. And I feel like you're somewhat undergirding how serious this issue was, because like you were impacted by it. Multiple left wing, Lindsay Ellis was impacted by this, right? Like people who just like didn't experience.
My strongest, I agree with you. My strongest like empirical example of this, okay, is for the people that were like too snowflakey and wanted to move to the left or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when they tried to make their own platform, what did they get? They got Blue Sky, right?
Yeah.
Blue Sky is like, it's there. It's like kind of cringe, but it's like, it's there and it does its thing. It's whatever. When the people on the right got super ass banged and they wanted to make their own platforms, what the fuck did they do? They got Parler. They got Truth Social. They got the worst, most degenerated, horrible cesspits of human filth that the internet has ever seen. There was a third one. I can't remember. There was Parler was one, and there was another social media platform they're trying to make. But these were the worst places of all like mankind that existed on the internet. And I think that says something for the types of people that are like on a mission to rail against where we are currently. Now, again, I'm not saying that this excuses all the mistakes of one side or the other, but like I feel like the general trajectory of both sides, you can look at it and like, well, what did their extremist platforms look like? Blue Sky is like a harmless, like little cucky, whatever, progressive place. And Parler was like the home of like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and other like radical, like Truth Social and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, the issue, this is true. The issue is that like
Gab, that's the other one.
Gab is the other one, yeah. The issue for me, so one thing I'd concede, probably calling it the moral high ground isn't fair. I think it's less compelling when you say, especially like Tom Fuller just said in my chat, right? When you rewrite it to be like, actually the right wing wasn't getting disproportionately like canceled and like impacted by these things.
Wait, oh my God, wait. Wait, you said something about Tom Fuller and then it cut off. Go ahead.
So there's kind of two issues. Did you hear my grant about the moral high ground?
I heard you say something about maybe we shouldn't call it granted moral high ground, and then you said something about Tom Fuller.
Yeah, okay. So I would just grant you that maybe we shouldn't call it the moral high ground. That's probably not good verbiage on my part because I don't know how moral this thing specifically is. However, what I do have an issue with is there is a number of people on the left who were railing against the cancel culture of the left, like Tom Foolery, right? That are now rewriting the history to say conservatives weren't disproportionately affected by this. And it's like, yes, they were. They absolutely were, right? We can go into whether it was justified or not.
I think the careful thing is, what does it mean when we say disproportionately affected? That's like
they were getting
challenging word, right?
Canceled, told that their opinions were bad, pressured out of workplaces. I mean, we had on TikTok.
When I'm thinking of like disproportionately affected, right? So like, would you say that like children in society wear a disproportionately high amount of diapers compared to like young adults and adults?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But like maybe not because they deserve it.
Yeah. So I gave the example.
What means when he says that. So
yeah, I gave the example of like she didn't even deserve a rape with Sargon of Akkad, right? Which led to him being demonetized and people trying to get his Patreon destroyed as well, so he couldn't have money, which is an obvious attempt to pressure his speech so that he stops talking so that he can't get paid for his speech anymore. This is obviously what it is, right? It's saying this cannot be in the town square. What else is it?
I want to agree with you, but like I'd have to go look at the context, but like I'm pretty sure he was running for office when he said this comment. And I think it was against another elected person. I'm like, you're like begging for.
Oh, it wasn't that she deserved rape. It was that I wouldn't even rape you.
No, yeah, because she complained about something about like women have more. She was complaining about rape culture or something, and then he made a comment because she wasn't attractive or whatever. He's like, oh, well, I wouldn't even rape her or whatever, something like that. It was a dumb joke. It was a joke, but I'm like, you're running for office, right? Like, if I was running for president, I'm not going to be out here, dropping retard bombs and, calling people whatever. Like, Obviously, my conduct would be significantly different. The fact that he dropped that was a crazy comment to make. Now, I don't know if that's why he got demonetized 100%. It might have been. But I'm just saying that, like, if he wasn't running for office, I don't think that comment would have picked up anywhere near that level of traction.
The issue, maybe, I'm not sure if I agree with that, right? My issue is that the stick that the platform is using and the stick that we're using on him, maybe it should shift for us culturally because he's running for office. I don't know if he was at the time, but I'll just grant it for you right now. However, the platform also like caved to that and demonetized him when there are definitely much worse jokes that you have made that I do not believe you were demonetized on YouTube from. Like the shovel rape joke or comment.
Well, that was like in 2015. I don't even know if that was a joke, but that was in 2015. But also, I've been banned from Twitter for like 10 times.
Not Twitter. I said right? YouTube. I think, didn't the comment that he make, was it on Twitter?
it might have been on camera. He made it in the context of being a person running for office against another person who was like an elected official. I don't even know if it matters where he makes the comment. Like that's going to be like the context of like, when I say context, I mean like the position that he's trying to occupy. I think it's going to significantly change people's perceived reactions to that, you know?
Okay, let me just check Makad.
Yeah, we should check. I don't
for
actually
office.
remember 100% where that came from. I thought that was the context of that comment, though. He was running for the UKIP position because the UK had that fucking Leave party or whatever.
Hold on, it's not coming up quickly for me. So do you think that platforms should be more punitary to a person on their platform if they're running for office than if they're not running for office? Like YouTube.
Do I think they should be? Probably not. I don't necessarily think so. Okay. But I mean, like, it's going to increase the likelihood of anything getting caught. Like, I think if I had made my conservative comment or something about like tankies or I don't know, or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'd be really, really irked about getting demonetized on YouTube. But like, I understand like the huge like national spotlight and attention on everything now and the context and everything, right? When I'm getting so much attention and everything, it makes more sense why it would happen there.
Sure, yeah. So as long as there's like,
stupid to get demonetized, but like, I understand the context.
Yeah, I understand the context too. So like my issue would be that like there was a lot of fervor from like especially 2016 to 2020. There was a lot of energy to going loud and screaming at platforms, screaming at movies, right? Remember that like girl who got like banned from like Mandalorian or whatever because she was like maybe a little bit like anti-Semitic or something like that, right? Getting people's jobs removed, getting their workplaces doxxed, all these sorts of things. There was like a massive amount of fervor on the left for this type of behavior for people that we like viewed as like problematic in some way. And I think that this was bad and disproportionately targeted the right because I think at the time the platforms were willing to like cater more to the left, maybe because it was louder. There's probably complex reasons as to why that was the case, which they are now catering to the right and is the same system is getting used. And I don't think people just being loud enough about it.
So this is the only part of the framing that I don't like. You said the same system is being used.
Oh, he made that wouldn't even rape you comment in 2016, just as a heads up. So it was like years later that he got demonetized. If it was
that's the case, then he didn't get demonetized for that then, right?
Yeah, now I don't know what he got demonetized for. It could have just been enough people mad at him.
Too, right?
I have no idea. Yeah.
Because the only other like huge Patreon attack that I remember was the Lauren Southern stuff, and she was like firing flares at immigrants in the fucking ocean, right? So I mean, like,
yeah,
I feel like these things are. I can understand like where all of the.
It's not about the justification,
outrage comes
right?
from?
I understand. I never said right.
Well, but it's also the mechanism is also different too. Like again, like I said, for the Bud Light stuff and for the other like the woke go broke Disney stuff. Like I think people on the left don't really care when conservatives do this. That's fine. Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm just letting this. Sorry, hold on one second. Oh, cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that.
Also, I never said that it happened, right? I said this stuff about Sargon of Akkad because Hobbit brought up that joke. He looked into this. We're just getting it. It sounds like he said it in 2016. It got brought up again when he was running, which is why he got demonetized. So he didn't even get demonetized because of the statement originally. It's because enough fervor of the crowd, which was left angled against right, which I think there just was way more fervor for left to right cancelization. There's entire TikTok channels just dedicated to that, particularly when I started up in this space.
I understand, but like when you say there's more fervor, like does that make sense? Like what would have been, like what could have been equivalent in the other direction? Like what do you think, like if the right was exercising the same amount as the left, what do you think the right would have gone after?
I'd have to look at like what was said by left people in that time. When did Hassan say like deserve 9/11 stuff?
Hassan wasn't even a streamer until like 2019, right?
Yeah. So like, I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it to like give up a comparable example. The issue is I can't think of a comparable example where a left-wing person says something really bad years ago, it gets brought up, and then they get like completely nuked and like demonetized. The closest I can think to would be somebody again doing something more right-wing, like making an edgy joke, because unfortunately edginess has been consumed by the right.
Hold on, but that kind of makes sense, right? It would be harder. I mean, we can think of some examples of this. So James Gunn, for instance, got nuked off of.
Yeah, but I'm not saying whether it's justified or unjustified or good or bad. I'm saying that it happens.
Sure, I'm saying that like if somebody had like a crazy right-wing belief when they were younger, and then when they're older, they're on the left wing, and you're like, well, nobody got canceled for that. Well, that makes sense because they've changed positions. But if you had a right-wing belief growing up and then you got canceled for the same right-wing belief when you get older,
But
Right,
we know
I
that this
understand that.
happened, right? Like we know that people. So in the case of what's her fucking name, Jenna Marbles, an old video from years ago of her saying some racist joke. I don't know what it was. Some sort of racist joke. It came out later in life. She made an apology and said like it was wrong and I'm a different person now. But she still got canceled. And people were doing this all the time. They were going back like 10, 20 years to find like bad, edgy things that they had said.
I don't know for Jenna Marbles. I don't think that really happened. It could be wrong on that, but like there was stuff that because she was kind of like edgy or said some stuff when she was younger, but I don't think once she kind of like came back and made her career, I don't know if she got like re-canceled for anything. There might have been stuff that gets brought up every now and then, but I don't think she got like
she stopped her career.
Canceled a second.
She stopped making YouTube content.
Well, right? Yeah, she did it the first time, but that was because of that I don't think once she came back to her career, I don't think she's ever been canceled. Like I think she quit after, I don't know if it was right after the IDub stuff or a little bit after. IDub's made that video on her and she went on a little bit longer, but I think she quit and then she came back a few years later, several years later, but I don't think she's like stopped after that.
Sure.
People are saying she left over fish. I don't know what the fuck fish is. But
and again, we can get into some of the justifications. I think a lot of the left's justifications for like the cancel behavior that they did was bad. And I think some of the justifications were good. The issue is that people are even disagreeing with me that it happened disproportionately to the right, which it just obviously did. The issue is that because the right wears diapers more?
I understand it did. Yeah, it did. But what I'm trying to understand is like, do we think that it shouldn't have?
Well, I just
think that like the left.
I know that you want to move it in that direction. The issue is with your community right now that I've been fighting with, we're getting stuck at, did it even happen? And it's like, it obviously did. It obviously did. And it was just more directed at the right. This is obviously true. And if the issue is people calling me fucking retarded for this. And it's
my God, I'm thinking of Hannah Mongu. Sorry, I had the wrong person.
Okay. Jenna canceled herself. So she made an apology video and then she stopped making content, but she stopped making content for a number of reasons, but in large part because of like the level of like fervor and anger that she had at her. I don't think she could track it anymore. I
would be surprised if, I guess I haven't listened to all of these conversations going on, but I was surprised if my community is saying that nobody on the right got canceled or banned or whatever a long time ago. I feel like
they're not saying nobody. That's not what I said though. I said that the right was disproportionately affected by this. And they're saying that's not true.
Disproportionate word is, well, I would say that probably wasn't true, but it depends on where were we applying disproportionate at?
As in numbers, like total numbers.
Yeah, but we would never apply proportionality like that in any other circumstance, I think, right? Like the proportionality shouldn't be like, it's the same percentage of people being held accountable for a thing. It should be.
They can make that argument.
Offenders.
They can make that argument, but right now the total numbers is also being argued, which it shouldn't be. Because I can't litigate every single justification of every single cancellation because I don't know all the cancellations and all of them. I'm sure some are justified and some are not. My issue that I'm pointing out to start off with is the right wing was disproportionately affected by this, which means that they were probably disproportionately affected by both justified and unjustified cancellations, and they feel big feelings as a result of that. Because it would be very annoying if your side was constantly getting nuked.
But the big problem is that the big problem is they don't feel big feelings about being unjustifiably nuked. They feel big feelings about what we would call on our side justifiable nukes. I think that's the big issue, right? Their issue isn't like, I can't believe there are people that got banned because they incorrectly said something about, like the YouTube algorithm identified it incorrectly. They would say, I can't believe we got banned for speaking the truth about ivermectin and COVID.
I'm just not trying to justify their feelings. I'm saying that they are wrong and that way more right-wingers got canceled. And some of it was justified and some of it was not.
If we're talking about reacting to their feelings, then we are in a way justifying their feelings, right?
Of your community?
Or wait, I thought you were talking about right-wingers. You said they have big feelings about it. Or did you mean my community has big feelings about it?
Yeah, I'm not justifying their feelings necessarily, right? I am saying that they definitely did receive a large amount of cancellation, more than the left did, and we can probably find a number of examples where they got canceled when a left-winger didn't, and we can't find super good examples of multiple left-wingers getting the same level of cancel energy directed at them, despite like much worse things.
Well, that you added that ending part, and that's what I don't agree with. I don't think there were a whole bunch of left wingers that like I'm just trying to think of like who are all these left wingers that should have been canceled that weren't, like, or what is the behavior that we think like was sliding under the radar or something?
Edgy jokes probably is some of these things, right? Saying like really politically like insane things like that we should take away people's like public property, for example, or that like maybe like terrorism is
okay. Wait, come on. We should take away people's public property is going to be on private the same property level as saying that like. I don't know if that's like you think people should have been like kicked off platforms for that?
Nope, I don't. But there isn't even a conversation about what the left should be kicked off for. But there are obviously things that the left does.
But that's what I'm trying to, like, I think there's some stuff now that, like, for Hassan saying, like, there's stuff now that's being said.
I think you and your cancellations are a great example of
yeah, but I've been banned from so many platforms so many times, so I feel like I got hit the appropriate amount of times. I've been banned more than most right-wingers have, so.
Do you think that your
I just don't think
bans were justified and were the right stick at the right time?
I mean, for some of them, yeah. I mean, I think my Twitch ban was kind of bullshit, at least for permanent. But like,
we have people saying like, kill landlords, kill landlords,
yeah,
kill all white men.
Yes, now. But that wasn't like
2019, 2020.
That wasn't. I don't think that was as common a talking point.
Well, it just
I don't think most
should have been maybe bannable.
Sure, I think that there are definitely. I think that it would be hard to go back and, okay, here's a basic question, I guess. Do you think that if we were to grade everything on the same level of like, this is good, this is bad, whatever, if we were to grade everything fairly, do you think that, and then we had an ultimate content moderator God to catch every single thing that somebody had said or done, do you think that the same number of right-wing and left-wing people proportionally, do you think the same number would have been banned?
No, I think the right would probably catch more bans.
Okay, so I think they would disagree, and I think that's like the issue.
That your audience would disagree that the right would catch more bans if the like a perfect
the right
moderation
would disagree,
God?
and it sounds
of course, the right would disagree.
It sounds like you're saying that it should have been like equal, or it would have been equal.
Nope, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
that's what it sounded like you were implying earlier because of the proportionality.
What it started as is me saying right-wing people have just been canceled more. They just have been.
Yeah.
Unquestionably.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And people are disagreeing with me on that.
Okay.
Right? That's like the starting point. If we can't even agree with that, I don't know what to do. Like there's no starting point to talk about this. Then we could go into when it's justified and when it's not. I suspect that the right wing caught way more unjustified bans as well, which would explain some of their anger and frustrations.
What percentage of their anger or frustration? What are we calling unjustified? That's that part.
Unjustified would be what we decide upon later, right? Once we can agree that the right caught more, then we can go to the conversation of when it is justified or not. But if we can't even agree that the right caught more,
no, I understand you said that. I'm just saying you keep adding that part of like some of their feelings are coming from the unjustified bans, but that's not my perception. I don't think their feelings are coming from the unjustified bans. I think their feelings are coming from bans that people would say were justified.
I mean, it's probably
like
coming
the right wing,
from
the policy changes that the right wing are celebrating are the fact that there are no more bans anywhere for like COVID misinformation. They think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I imagine I'm not waiting on the right to necessarily say what would be justified or not. The issue is that we would have to agree on what's justified, and something like kill all landlords, we can all probably agree is not justified on the left, right? Which wasn't getting capped in the way that like Great Replacement was, which I think both of these things are really bad.
Yeah, I would agree that both of those things are.
Yeah, so if the justification
bad.
stick isn't being applied equally to each groups, that's a big issue as well. And what I'm saying is the right wing caught more, and I am saying I suspect, it's quite likely since they caught more, that they also caught more unjustified bans, which they have big feelings about all of the bans, but the feelings about the unjustified bans are fair because we would agree that they were unjustified. And if they caught more of them, they're going to be very angry about this, right? Especially when the left
caught. That's not why they're angry. Like if you got rid of all of the unjustified bans, their anger would go from like 100% to like 99%.
Yeah, but then the moderates would have a way less things to sink their teeth into when they point to left-wing cancel culture, right?
Yeah, but real life moderates don't, like people that are looking at things with an honest lens are not sinking their teeth into those things. They're going like, oh yeah, that sucks, but it really doesn't change the argument much at all.
Yeah, but it's really unfortunate when they have multiple examples of unjustified bans.
No, not really at all. It doesn't impact that whatsoever. Like if we were to find out that Jenna Simpson actually called her husband like a big piece of shit doo-doo and she was going to break his big TV, I don't think anybody fair would never, that wouldn't move the needle. Like, oh, fuck, okay, I understand why I killed her. Maybe it wasn't, the worst thing in the world. Like that's not moving the needle at all.
For the moderates?
Like if there might have been, no, I don't think so. The moderates aren't seeing reality. The moderates are seeing what conservatives are showing them. And what conservatives are showing them are that every single one of the conservatives are being banned unfairly because it's not because they're being banned for misinformation. They're being banned for the truth. Conservatives aren't upset because they got banned for COVID misinformation or because there were unjust bans. They feel like they got banned because the Jews or the deep state or whoever's controlling all of social media was trying to suppress the truth that COVID was either fake or the deadliest disease ever, and that the vaccines were fake or the deadliest things ever. That's what they got actually mad about.
Yeah, but the issue is that if they were also feeling like they were getting their speech staunched at school or at work because they were like making too edgy of a joke, all of this gets lumped together in a Gordian knot, which is fucking stupid. But this was also all happening too. And so again, there are certain justified bans that I will just stand by, and most moderates will stand by. Most moderates will be like, yeah, the JQ shit's kind of crazy. But when the moderate person, especially who says retard, is getting pressured at work, is worried that they like might become the main character of the week, I think that that's really bad. And I think it's a really bad thing. That was often the energy of canceling these types of people was coming from the left. It certainly wasn't the right trying to cancel people for saying retard. So I agree that the right was like probably received a lot more justified bans as well and staunching of their speech. The issue is that for the moderate experience, this cancel culture bled so extensively that it was impacting their day-to-day life where they didn't feel like they could say some things. And now they can capitalize, the conservatives can capitalize on that genuine sentiment that was driven from the left and use that to peddle like insane shit, which is, again, if they didn't have that, we would be in a much better position. If moderates hadn't felt afraid to say retard or to like make edgy like sexism jokes or racism jokes, that we would be in a better position.
Why not just like gaslight them and call them crazy and say that stuff never happens?
The
reason why I
moderates?
don't really believe these complaints for moderates, yes, the reason why I don't believe these complaints is that like anytime a black person complains about racism, anytime a woman complains about sexism, the go-to argument is always, oh, well, this person's crazy, that never happened, they call everything this or that or blah, 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 blah. And then people move on from it. And I think that there are people in those categories that have like a lot more legitimate complaints. The conservatives who are saying that like, oh my God, I'm worried that I'm going to be randomly charged with a rape because I looked at a woman at work wrong.
No, they're
so I don't know why
worried that they're like
the complaints from the right so much, but like from the left, they're like, oh, well, these things are all fictitious, and I believe everything the right says about their complaints.
I think the moderate is definitely, if the right starts encroaching. So when did the moderate start hating the right? When they started pushing church into all of their spaces and telling them that they couldn't say the word like God's name in vain and starting to like shove their personal predilections down the throats of the moderates that are stupid, just trying to work and take care of their kids. And I think the left did that dominantly from 2016 to 20. Like, I'm sure the right tried to, maybe at times, but the main pressure that moderates would have experienced, absolutely. And the reason that they would care about it is because they're selfish, because it personally affected them.
Yeah, but then I mean, then I think that the only thing that needs to change is like the messaging to show that the right is lying about a lot of this stuff. I think I don't think like if you when you take the position of like I need to purify like everything on my side so much so that every single thing is beyond criticism or beyond reproach. One, that's just never going to happen. It's always going to be impossible. You're always
is that my position though?
Well, when your position is saying like, well, the moderates have something to sink their teeth into. No. The moderates, you're looking for something, you're being shown something if that's what you're sinking your teeth into.
Not if their daily life, they have experienced it, right? And they understand that feeling of being canceled.
Their daily life, that's not true. I don't believe that the daily life of most people is getting canceled for calling somebody retarded. I don't believe that.
Okay. By canceled, if we're including things like socially ostracized, being pulled into HR and told that they're not allowed to do it, yes, moderates are being affected. And to everyone who's saying that's a vibe, yeah, moderates who are uninformed on politics are fucking stupid. It's all fucking vibes all the way through. Sorry.
I don't, but it's not, regardless of vibes, I just don't like even in the places that I work, like if I would have called a coworker like a retard in front of like a customer, I would have gotten shouted at by my supervisor. And this is in fucking Nebraska, Council Bluffs, Iowa. Like where are all these work environments? I don't believe this. I think that these are things conservatives are saying and they're telling people to feel this way. And so people are vibing with it. But like what work environment are we in where we're like casually like shouting retard at people and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe HR nailed me on this one. Like even 20 years ago, I feel like you would have got in trouble for that, no?
It's going to be like anywhere that's, I still to this day, when I enter like more left social spaces, you're held hostage by like the most politically correct person, right? Where you like say like retard and they'll be like, ooh, I don't know about that. It's shifting back, which is good right now. It's shifting back for all of the worst fucking reasons though. But yes, you would.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like
everyone has experienced being socially held hostage to the most PC person, and the issue is that that threat had teeth because people can go to your HR. Was it the daily experience that if somebody said retard, they just immediately re-reported to HR? No, but they were seeing it on social media. They were hearing about their friends happening it. I already told you, I know 8 different people at university alone who experienced this. Right? I just do, and so this was impacting people's personal lives.
I mean, like, I feel like it's a matter of what you put focus on. Because I mean, like, you're always being held hostage by people in your social group in terms of what you can or can't say. Like, there's never ever been like, this is the ultimate anarcho free speech socialist group where everything goes. Like, everybody always has some shit that they get irritated about or stuff that you can't bring up for whatever reason. No?
But that's not what I'm talking about. Right?
You're making it sound like when the left won the culture war, that like now that people can't say retarded, like people were getting either HR'd or they were getting kicked out of their social groups.
No,
like, I think like just language.
No, that's not a genuine reframe. Well, that's not a framing of what I said. Did I say?
Okay, I completely didn't understand. Or what my reframe was. What do you think I just said you thought that you didn't say?
It seems like you're saying that people are running around screaming retard at their boss, right? I'm not saying that they're screaming retard at their boss of work. I'm not saying these things.
I didn't say boss. I said coworkers.
Sure. Okay. Coworkers. Okay. I'm not saying that they're running around doing all this stuff, right? What I'm saying is that there was unquestionably, driven from the left, a zeitgeist around how you can talk and think and speak, and things like edgy humor, anything that was perceived as racist or transphobic or all these things absolutely impacted people. And this type of zeitgeist that encouraged the behavior where we would maybe like socially get weird, all the way to getting poor grades suddenly for conservative opinion, all the way to getting called into HR, which didn't happen often. I don't think it happened all of the time, right? But I think it did happen, right? That this whole capture of culture was driven from the left and went all the way up to bans on YouTube, whether they were justified or not. And this entire sentiment settled in a large part because of the left being unfettered in its cancel culture.
I mean, I guess I understand. Yeah, okay. I guess I kind of understand what you're talking about. I feel like
but I'm using this.
It's always changing, and people are always like being captured, and people are always like moving in directions.
I agree. Which is why when conservatives bring this up, well, because when conservatives bring this up, I will immediately point to when like at Christian space and like churches, when Republicans had more power, they just like wouldn't let you say like fuck and shit like that, right? They like did the same thing. The reason that I ever brought this up is as one explanation for a long litany of reasons as to why right-wingers are mad. It's not to say that they're fully justified in their anger. It's just to say that this is one of the reasons driving the anger, and something that moderates blame the left for. They don't blame the right for. It's mostly a matter of internet history that I'm referring to, but people keep en masse disagreeing with me that conservatives even got banned or moderated more, right? In fact, sure. I've had people try to tell me that left-wingers actually got targeted more. There's been people in my chat being like, actually it was the left that was targeted from 2016 to 2020 more, which is absurd. That's obviously not true.
If you're just doing a description of things, then I think I would agree, but you're mixing a lot of language. It makes it seem like it's more prescriptive or that you're justifying the other end. So it's hard to get a handle on that sometimes.
People are baking in a lot of prescriptions as well. Like you can just ask me and clarify if that's the prescription that I'm making. Am I prescribing that we should just be like en masse banning the left to make up for it? Or that am I even prescribing language or rhetoric to people? I'm literally not. I'm starting with the description that this is true, that it did happen, and people won't even concede that.
But you're not just saying that it's true and it did happen. You're also adding in secondary things where you're saying that like there were probably a larger amount of unjustified bans. So you're saying that there were bans that happened that shouldn't have happened for the right wing, and that might be a big reason why they're mad. So and that sounds like a valid justification, I think, to anybody, right? Like, well, if we're going to ban for unjustified reasons, then they should be mad, right?
If it would be better that when I'm debating people like Hobbit Follower, I just keep holding him to the position of, but you could agree that the right experienced it more. You can agree that the right experienced it more, and finally get him to concede that. Sure. Then I should move into the justification. Maybe that would be a stronger like debate system. But however, if we're going into the justification system, we could talk about that. But we're not even there yet. If the conversation can't move past, of course the right experiences more. And of course, this cancel culture was driven from the left in recent internet history.
Yeah, I mean, okay, hold on. I'm going up an elevator. I might lose your phone. Give me 25 seconds.
Okay.
Can you hear me in here, or is it totally cut off?
I can hear you. I don't think you can hear me, though. Hello, hello?
Here, okay, I changed my mind. You can have
Hello, hello?
okay, can you hear me? Hello, hello?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then I'll make my point, or I can make a point. You ask a question.
Okay, make your point. Make your point.
Okay. The only thing I was going to say is that like there's going to be some language, there's going to be some descriptions, there's going to be some analyses that are going to just feel so normatively loaded. It's going to be very, very hard to separate out like any normativity, like any like loading from the descriptions that you're making. And I think people are always going to feel a certain type of way. I think it's okay to do that if you're trying to provoke a certain response, but it's otherwise it's going to be really hard, right? Like,
sure.
So if somebody were to tell me like,
to rebut you
like
on
if I were
this.
to make this.
Sorry, just
real quick. If I were to say, like,
but I'm getting roped into making arguments that I'm not, and you're doing it right now.
It doesn't matter. I don't care. No, I'm not doing it right now. I'm telling you what's happening. If I say the statement, black people are dumber than white people in the United States, that is a descriptively true statement. I will never get past that statement to talk about like education or social systems or whatever else if I make that statement, because that's so normally loaded. People are like, what do you mean they're dumb? You think they're genetically inferior? You think that they're whatever? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying everybody's going to get hung up on that description, no matter how true it might be.
Okay, so justified versus unjustified bans is only something I brought up within the process of this conversation when you said, I can agree that the right wing got more bans, and then we moved on to justification because nobody could even...
No, you brought that up, it came up in the Hobbit conversation,
But that's because he was also moving towards justification.
Sure, but then you say, well, we don't need to talk about that. But then the Sargon of Akkad example came up, and it's like, oh, well, now it feels like Kyla thinks that a lot of these bans were unjustified.
Yeah, so
like that's where the feelings are going to be.
Sure. So okay, quick question. Do you disagree that there were probably unjustified bans?
I mean, I would cautiously agree with that, depending on where you're going with it. But yeah, I'm sure there were.
Just like bans that if we could wave the magic moderator watch, we'd go, yeah, this was not fair. The thing was not happening. It was just driven by like a hate mob. Not good. Okay.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So that we can have that justification. Okay. But that's not even my point. Okay.
Okay.
My point with Hobbit, where we were stuck at right at that moment, was that he didn't even agree that the right was getting banned more. Right? He asked me for an example, which is why it gets into like this muddy area. But the issue is that I don't know how to have like the perfect rhetoric where people like won't jump down my throat over if like we can't even grant the first fact. In fact, I'm getting called a retard en masse for that. And then when I move on to the examples, because I'm trying to like be good and engage with my opponent, I move on to examples. People are getting mad because now I'm like making prescriptive language and stuff like that. And it's like, you wanted to move it into this conversation of justification, which we can talk about. I'm willing to talk about these things. And yes, there are some prescriptions that will emerge from whether it's justified or not. But
yeah, I understand what you're saying. My guess is going to be, and I can't know because I can't read Hobbit's mind, and I could just disagree with Hobbit here. Maybe we would just fundamentally disagree. Well, my guess is going to be whether Hobbit realizes it or not. He's probably hitting on that, like whether you think the bans were justified or not, when he says more people were banned. Because when the example that gets brought up is Sargon of Akkad, and that was an example of like a bad ban or an unjustified ban. And he's going to feel like you think that most of the bans against right-wingers were unjustified, and that's where all of their anger comes from. That's my guess. He's not saying this, but I think that's what's happening mentally when he wants to fight against it in your conversation. Does that make sense?
Sure. I don't know how much of that is like my responsibility or whether like it's up to my opponent to like clarify what I mean necessarily. If I give Sargon of Akkad and then I describe him as a moderate right-winger back in 2016, right? You should probably assume from that, unless you think I'm fucking retarded, that I probably don't think Alex Jones is somebody who's a moderate right-winger, right? It's probably unreasonable to presume that I would be assuming this. Otherwise, like now the burden of my language in this conversation is so insanely high that it's like good charity is not happening at this point anymore.
Must suck, huh? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. That's what I'm just saying. That's what I think is happening. Is the feeling of the conversation can feel kind of victim blaming or prescriptive, even if you're not trying to be. But that's my guess. But also, I have set all this stuff up. Thanks for the conversation. I'm glad to hop on the fuck Kylo train. So, also, there's some guy in the room below or whatever who's a mega fucking simp or whatever. He's got like a purple avatar. You should tell the guy to chill out. Okay. Have fun. Bye.
Gotcha. He's a big hater. Gotcha. Have fun. Bye.
You are almost 100% bought into the conservative framing on this. I just want to kind of read your quotes back to you and just see if you understand my perspective on that. I think you are making us out to be villains. And I don't think that it's necessarily intentional, but I think because you are so bought in to the idea that you have to kind of meet somebody halfway on their perspective of things, that you have almost completely almost brainwashed yourself into this position. Do you have any problem with any of that I've said so far? Do you think that you have a grasp on reality?